Ask the Messenger's TV show is a TV show that educates, informs, and entertains our viewers on public health issues such as mental illness, suicide, addiction, illness and disease, COVID-19 relief, crime, domestic violence, homelessness, human trafficking, employment opportunities, healthcare, and more. And now, Ask the Messengers.
Since 1971, Women's Equality Day has been celebrated annually on August the 26th. The celebration falls on the anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, which granted women the right to vote. Women's Equality Day is about uplifting and empowering women and marveling at how far women have progressed, defying all odds and oppressions. Take some time on Women's Equality Day to brush up on your women's history and learn about the complicated and fascinating history of women's rights in the U.S. and internationally. Today on Ask the Messengers, our guests are Artesia Washington, owner of Rita's Ice and Custards in Farmington Hills, and Claudreen Jackson is the founder of the Pervis Jackson Foundation for autistic and special needs children. They both are here to share with us what Women's Equality Day means to them and also some things that they have accomplished as women themselves. Ask the Messengers begins now. All righty, we are so excited to celebrate and honor Women's Equality Day, which really, in my opinion, women's equality is because we stand up and we women, but we are taking time today to kind of like talk about Women's Equality Day, which is August the 26th every year, thanks to the presidents and those before us and the women that marched to make that happen. But I'm really proud to have Artesia Washington. She is a owner of Rita's Ice Cream and Custards in Farmington Hills, and she is here to give her perspective on Women's Equality Day. Of course, it would be nice because she's a woman, and we can speak on this subject, right, Artesia?
Yeah, absolutely.
So is required. So first of all, I'd like to thank you for being a guest here on Ask the Messengers today. And just what do you feel about this women's equality movement, Equality Day? What does that mean to you?
Well, first and foremost, Tina, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here on Ask the Messenger, where you guys do awesome work. For me, women's equality is really about pushing for what we deserve. Pushing for the opportunities that are presented to men should be available to women as well. And so it's exciting. Obviously, one day isn't enough, but it's exciting to have the one day to be honored. Just happy about it.
Good. Now, you run a business, you own a business, and you've been running businesses and pretty much entrepreneurial all of your life. Throughout your lifetime, what are some of the things that you, as a woman, when you show up to those meetings or when you try to negotiate contracts as it relates to your business, what are some of the things that you have had to kind of like really stand your grounds on?
Honestly, funding.
Okay.
Funding continues to be a problem, I think, for not just women, minorities, and all minorities, women and other nationalities. Funding still continues to be a problem. There are a lot of programs for funding, but you have to commit to it a lot of, and it's a timely situation. It could be like a program you might have to go through for like 6 months. I've been fortunate that my grandfather was a true bootstrapper. So you make your own way. Whatever goal you have down the line, you really put yourself in a situation so that if the funding does not come through the way you anticipate, that you're able to self-fund, which is the real challenge for anyone trying to be in business. Wow. Especially for minorities.
Okay. So tell us about Rita's. What is Rita's all about? It's ice cream and custard, but it's not just your everyday ice cream. It's kind of special. Tell us about that.
So Rita's Italian Ice is a franchise out of Philadelphia. We are the third store in the state of Michigan. It's really focused on Italian ice, but we have award-winning custard. So ice cream is different than custard, so no offense, but custard is smoother, richer, creamier. It's better quality than your average ice cream.
Okay.
So, and we make our flavors in-house, which, like our butter pecan is made in-house. Our strawberry cheesecake is probably our number one seller. We make these flavors in-house. We're a kosher certified store on Farmington Hills. It's just been a total blessing to be able to bring a franchise like that to. It was here in Michigan, but to bring it to Farmington Hills, and for us as minorities to be a part of the franchise has really been an honor.
Now, listen, we're going to go back to this with the women's equality. What were some of the things that you had to go through to even make that happen? Did they accept you, or did you have to work a little harder? What were some of the things you had to do to even bring that here?
Well, you know what? Thankfully, our CEO Linda is a female, so that was half of the battle with Linda being a female. Like I said, the biggest hurdle that we dealt with was number one, funding. Number two, you never know what's going to happen with zoning and the building and code enforcement. So I made a point to stay out of the picture until we were ready to get our C of O.
Okay.
And I did that intentionally. You know what I mean? Right. I hate to say it like that.
Yes, right.
But it's better to err on the side of caution than it is to find out. But I err on the side of caution. Okay. And that's just one of the things I found out in construction, is that as a minority in a situation where you're the true minority, I'm sure if we pull the statistics in Farmington Hills, how many businesses are owned by minority Black women or just women in general, right. I'm sure we're not the majority.
Right.
So
right.
we stayed out of the picture until we got to the certificate of occupancy.
That's smart. That's good. So let's speak to young women out there who have a dream, have a vision, have an idea, and they think that they can't because they are a woman. I mean, look at us. I'm a host on a TV show, and on the show, Claudreen Jackson, she talked about as she was growing up in the 40s and the 60s, where there were no women on TV when she was a child growing up. And she even mentioned Lucille Ball, that was just unheard of,
Yeah.
And now you see women like my mentor and idol, of course, Oprah Winfrey, right?
Of course.
Multimedia fabulous, and that's why I'm here doing this today. So let's speak to those women out there who are just dreaming and thinking and like probably second guessing themselves because they are women. What would you say to those young ladies right now?
Make a plan and stick to it. So discipline and a plan will help you succeed in anything. And so, people think that starting a business starts with a business plan. It actually starts with your discipline before you even get to the business plan. I would never myself, just on my experience, I would never plan to start a business. Number one, you have to have your money to cover your household for, a year, really, because most businesses fail within the first 2 years. So anticipate covering your personal finances for 2 years. Mm-hmm. So what I would suggest is I would put it in a money market account, and don't touch that money market account, and don't expect your business to start tomorrow. Yes, some businesses do start tomorrow. They're fortunate. And those are the ones that you can really much do out of your house. But you have to make a personal plan before your business plan. Your personal plan of how you're going to survive, how you're going to maintain your household. All while you're doing that for like 2 years, you need to put that money to the side like a money market account automatically. That's number one. Number two, when you start your business plan, there's all these formulas, and you could download templates of how to start a business plan, to how to write a business plan, how to start these things. And you need to do it. You need to look at it. You need to evaluate. You need to, again, make a plan. And then you have to be disciplined. I wouldn't go into anything with the starter cost without having at least 20% of my starter cost. Yes, there's programs for like 3%. If you can dedicate the time to attend these regular workshops, they are awesome. They help. Look at the SBA. What are the requirements if you're going to go for SBA loan? All of these things go into your plan before you even get to writing the business plan, you know? It's like you can't, you know what I mean? So it really takes just a lot of planning, which women are great at planning. You know, we're really good at discipline. You know, these are the things that we just have to do. It's, you know, we don't have time to mess around and find out.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? So plan,
Right.
you plan your, you know, and discipline are the two most, you know, I would say the most important things when you plan on starting a business is your planning process and your discipline to make your business come to light.
Stay tuned for more of Ask the Messengers.
Women's equality means to me is that without equality, you and I would not be doing this show together and speaking to people. Because back then, I was raised up in the 1940s. Back then, women's place was in the home. Like they said, children should be seen and not heard. They said a woman's place is in the home. It was women that decided they could do more than just be a secretary, a nurse, or a teacher. That was the profession that was allotted for women. It has benefited my life because I can vote. There was a time women weren't allowed to vote. Susan B. Anthony in the early 1900s struggled for years to get women the right to vote. Susan B. Anthony passed away in 1906, and we didn't get the right to vote until 1920. So by the time I was born, women did have the right to vote, but it took us years. Took them years for us to get the right to be able to vote. I would have been able to attend, but I didn't. I didn't attend college until I was in my 30s and 40s. But it was much harder for a woman to get into college then than it is now. And most women weren't even trying to get into college because they believed a woman's place is in the home. This is in the 40s when I grew up. It was in the 60s before women decided that they could raise children, because the thought was if you were a mother, you could not be a mother and have a job. And you and I both know that both of us being mothers with jobs, we know that women can do it. I'm not saying women can do it all. You can't do it all at the same time. But women are capable of holding down a job and running a household. That was one of the biggest advances, the biggest things for women's equality. They were marching in the 60s and women were burning their bras saying we're through. That was their signal that we're through just being stuck in the house. So now, I don't know if women can go into almost any profession that they want to. When I was growing up in the 1940s, women could not get credit in their name. The only way a woman could get credit was to have a husband. And if a woman had a husband and wanted to get credit in her name, he had to sign for it. So we were basically their property. And men would say that, you are my property. And the marriage vows said love, honor, and obey. And men would always say, you're supposed to obey me. You're supposed to obey me. And it was in the 60s when women started marching and trying to get equal rights that they campaigned for obey to be taken out of the wedding vows and it to be love, honor, and cherish. So I don't know whether it's love, honor, and cherish now or not. But the fact that you and I are doing what we are doing, the fact that we could become a part of the media. Back then it was just, well, I was 9 years old when TV started. So when TV first started, it was just men. And that's one of the ways that Lucille Ball got famous. She was one of the first women to have as much success in TV as the men were. I'm a deacon at my church. And it was only in 2015 when we got a pastor that said he would allow lady deacons. Before that, there were no ladies allowed to be in the deacon or to come into the pulpit, because they said that a woman was not supposed to be able to give orders to a man. The woman had to be subservient. Back in the day, the men, they proudly said the way to be a good husband is to keep the woman barefoot and pregnant. And it was a woman's place is in the home. And a woman is supposed to be raising children. The woman can't be out of the house doing a job because she wouldn't raise the children right. Back then, they said children should be seen and not heard. I don't know if you heard that saying. Children should be seen and not heard, and women should be barefoot and pregnant. And that was our function on the earth. Even when I was in school and when I talked about going to college or traveling, the women would say, they called me high-minded. They say, you're too high-minded. Women don't do those things. Women, you better get in that kitchen and learn how to fry some chicken and learn how to change the baby's diaper and learn how to clean house and get all those other thoughts out of your mind, which is what women were told. I wasn't the only woman told that. Women were told your place is in the home. So in the 60s, when women got brave enough to say we can do professions too, I wasn't a part of it. I didn't think it was going to work. It was also in the 60s when Black people were marching for equality. The 60s were years of a lot of marching and struggling for equality.
So I want to ask, you when you were a little girl, you had dreams to travel the world. And at that time, most people would say you were silly, right, and that was impossible.
Right.
How many places have you been?
I didn't even have dreams to travel the world. I didn't think it was possible, but I did say one day I wanted to go to New York, and one day I wanted to go to California. To me, that was almost like going to the moon. And they say, you're too high-minded. Your place is in the home. And I was blessed to marry a husband. Of course, it was after the 60s, after we'd gotten equality, but he wanted me to be able to travel. When I said I wanted to travel, he started taking me places because he was a performer. He started taking me places with him, and I was able to travel. So I have been many, many places, and I have seen the beauty that God has created in this world. You know, I have seen the power and the glory and the beauty of the Lord. If you've been to Niagara Falls or the Grand Canyon or seen any of the oceans, you have too. Without the equality, I wouldn't have been able to see any of that. I'd have been in the house with my apron on cooking. This is something that I never thought I'd have to say, but I'm praying that all women get out and vote so that we can keep our democracy, so that we can continue to have equality. Because if we lose our democracy, then we'll lose a lot of the rights that we have, the Equal Rights Amendment and the different rights that we have. So I'm not telling you how to vote, but I'm saying get out and vote so that we will not lose our democracy.
We'll be right back with more of Ask the Messengers.
What is the history of Women's Equality Day? During the 1800s, many women in the United States began to think about equal rights for all. At this time, most American women couldn't inherit property or make even half of a man's wages in the jobs available to them. In 1848, famous leaders such as Lucretia Mott, Susan B. Anthony, and Elizabeth Cady Stanton gathered for a meeting in Seneca Falls, New York to work for women's rights to vote. This is known as the women's suffrage movement. They knew that in order for women to gain the right to vote, the Constitution would need to be changed or amended. It wasn't until after World War I that the 19th Amendment started gaining momentum in Congress, as many of the supporters of abolition turned their attention to women's rights. Women across America made such an outstanding contribution to the war effort that their calls for suffrage became impossible to ignore. Finally, on August 26, 1920, the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution was passed, allowing women the right to vote. This amendment was accomplished peacefully without violence. However, the fight for equal rights is not over. Today, the wage gap between men and women still impacts women's economic power, and gender-based discrimination still affects the workplace and beyond.
That concludes this week's episode of Ask the Messengers. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you would like to help support our show, please feel free to make a donation of any kind by visiting our show website, www.askthemessengers.org. If you prefer to mail donations, please make check or money order payable to Ask the Messengers TV show and send it to 18400 Schaefer Highway, Detroit, Michigan 48235. Ask the Messengers is the program that deals with things that help you. Thank you for watching.